And let's get into that first big story out of Axios. This is crazy news. Putin orders Russian peacekeeping operations in eastern Ukraine. The latest in a decree recognizing the independence of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. Putin ordered the Russian military to conduct peacekeeping operations in the occupied Ukrainian territories. The separatists don't hold all the territory they claim, so recognition could swiftly evolve into war unless Russia limits its operations to the separatist-held areas. Analysts have also warned that Moscow could also use any attacks on its troops in eastern Ukraine, real or fabricated, as a pretext for a broader war. The separatists declared independence in 2014 and have waged a low-scale war against Ukrainian forces since then, with military backing from Moscow. The fighting has escalated since Thursday, with Kiev accusing the separatists of persistent shelling across the line of contact. I just want to point out, though, I don't believe the corporate press. I don't know exactly what's going on. The U.S. is typically run by establishment political warmongers who will lie to justify invading or triggering a war or whatever. There was a lot of reporting that Russia would seize Kiev and occupy and then hunt down supporters of the president, which is all just propaganda BS. It's a complicated situation. You know, I mentioned in the intro, I have friends down there and they view this as Russia just building up an excuse to seize more territory in eastern Ukraine because they don't want Ukraine becoming a NATO force. They don't want NATO on their doorstep. But I don't know what to believe, to be completely honest. I certainly don't believe Vladimir Putin, but am I supposed to believe Joe Biden? Or is this all just some dirty game? No, I'll say one more quick thing. As this was heating up, we got reports that at the Ukrainian embassy, they started destroying computers and data. Well, as most of us know, Joe Biden was criminally involved, at least I should say, in my opinion, it was criminal, with Burisma and his son getting, was it $83,000 per month being on the board of directors for a Ukrainian energy company. And then Joe Biden, quid pro quo, told the president, fire the prosecutor. The prosecutor was investigating this company. And then as soon as he's out, the guy who founds it comes back. It wasn't until Donald Trump came in, the guy fled the country again. So look, I think it's simple. My view, Joe Biden's panicking. Joe Biden was playing dirty with Ukraine along with the rest of the Democrats, probably because they want to set up an oil pipeline going through Ukraine, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. When Donald Trump was president, all this disappeared. For 4 years, there was nothing really going on here. What happened? Then Joe Biden comes back and all of a sudden war's breaking out. It's awfully convenient.
I feel like this is actually a good thing. I think in the reality what will happen is they'll take over a certain chunk of the country. Russians look good. We look good because we can say we saved Ukraine. There'll be some kind of negotiation. The Norwegians or the Swiss or someone will come in and build some kind of peace program. They'll call it the Kiev Accords or something. They'll call it something like that. They'll call peace, and it'll be settled in a way that is acceptable for everybody enough. It's distraction against the disaster the Russian economy is. It's distraction against the disaster that our economy is. So it's good distraction against all those things. And it sets up China for a negotiated deal on Taiwan.
Really?
So it sets everything up in motion. So I think this is all great in the long run for everybody. Everyone's going to be happy, meaning all the establishment will be happy. The individual Ukrainians, they're going to be screwed. If we have to send any troops, we're going to be screwed. But the establishment is going to be just fine. Putin is getting a bunch of, pro-Russian, see, we're Russia, oorah, oorah. I know our country's a disaster, but isn't it great to be Russian? And the same thing over here. We're not talking about how bad our economy is. Look at the news. It's all Ukraine.
Yeah.
We're not talking about how bad things are here. It's all Ukraine. So we can all talk about that. Good distraction. Life is good. And we settle it without fighting or actually having a battle. And that sets up China to have some kind of negotiation for Taiwan, which it'll be a Hong Kong type negotiation for Taiwan.
There are a bunch of these articles that keep popping up talking about, what is this one we have from The Sun? Here we go. How Russian invasion of Ukraine may trigger conflict in all corners of the globe. In terrifying World War III, expert warns. This one's from January. There were a couple today. Every week you get a handful of them. Mm-hmm. And, obviously people are already saying the title we used is because I mentioned the fears of it. Mm-hmm. Well, the challenge is, do I act like these articles, based on my bias, are all fake, and just say that no one's really scared about, if Russia moves into eastern Ukraine, will that be the distraction China needs to move in on Taiwan? Mm-hmm. Will China start using similar tactics on Taiwan?
Yep.
I think that's a legitimate concern. And then if we get spread thin across the board, what's Iran going to do? What's going to happen in Yemen with Saudi Arabia? What's North Korea going to do? So I think there's a possibility there. But I do think it's fair to point out all these big stories that are popping up, like Russia would occupy Kiev. That's insane.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not going to happen. And also the U.S., I really do not believe, maybe this will come back to bite me in the ass. I do not believe the U.S. will have active troops in eastern Ukraine or in Ukraine fighting with Russians. The U.S. is going to waggle its finger. And I think it's like you're saying, Larry, I'd be willing to bet that Joe Biden and his people are sitting there and they're like, hey, this Russia stuff is fantastic news for us.
Absolutely.
Like our approval's in the gutter. Everyone's mad at us. You've got protests. They're going to do a DC convoy. Quick, scream war and point to Russia.
Yes. And we'll shake our fist and see, I'm strong. I'm so strong against these Russians. Putin's a killer. He can do that very easily. It's a smart move for him to do that. But in reality, if there are any U.S. troops there, and I doubt there will be, but if there are, it'll only be after they're sure it is a safe settlement. Like a North Korea, South Korea type thing, right? Where we know the odds of actual war are so slim, then we might put troops there maybe. But I doubt we will. The Germans still want that Russian energy, right?
Yep.
And the Germans run Europe, right? The Germans couldn't win it, in military, but they won it economically. So they still control Europe and they want that Russian energy. So they're not going to fight a war over that.
Well, actually, I mean, that's the big thing, isn't it? It was the Qatar-Turkey pipeline.
Sure.
The Western, NATO, the U.S., they wanted to get... I bring it up fairly often because it's significant to everything that's going on. And it's more than just this. I mean, you can get reductive and go beyond why this pipeline mattered. But Qatar was going to build a pipeline going up through Syria and Turkey. Syria said, no, Russia's an ally of ours. We won't do it. Then conveniently for the U.S., a civil war erupts in Syria. And then the U.S. like, well, we got to get rid of Assad now. Oh, it's funny how that guy was blocking your pipeline. And now all of a sudden you oppose him and you want to go to war there. Obama then basically funds a lot of the really awful stuff directly or indirectly that's happening down there. You get Syria collapsing. Then all of a sudden it moves up into Ukraine because that's where the Gazprom Russian pipeline goes through. It's about a quarter, I believe, around a quarter of the energy going into Europe. The West wants to displace that, compete, and lower prices. Russia won't let them because Russia's allied with Syria. So now the U.S., they engage in conflict in Syria. So here, I'll tell you the funny thing. We sit here and you've got the American corporate press going like, Russia is invading Ukraine. And it's like, and what did we do with Syria? That was an ally of Russia. And we were arming rebels. We were calling for Bashar al-Assad to be removed, saying he was all these really awful things. Russia's doing the same thing in Ukraine right now. This is all part of the proxy war over energy.
And some of our weapons actually killed Russians.
Yeah.
Right? So some of the Russians were killed by our weapons. World War III didn't break out.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants World War III. Right? World War III is bad for business.
Yeah.
What they want is small proxy wars. Small proxy wars, really good for business. We learned that after World War II. Right? After small proxy wars, great for business. So we want lots of small proxy wars throughout the world. That works very well for the military-industrial complex.
But I would say any possibility of a World War III, I'll put it this way. Some have actually chatted with us and said that World War III started a while back. It's just that we're not in that generation of warfare anymore. So now what we're seeing is propaganda, media manipulation, cyber warfare. And I think it's fair to say that if that is modern warfare, we are in World War III.
Well, I would call it Cold War II. Let me, if I could, right? We had Cold War I after World War II, which was Soviet Union or Russia as number one, China as a junior partner. The MAD, mutual assured destruction, was nuclear, but the battlefield was espionage, right? That was the battlefield during that one. We won that war, right? But of course, we had an advantage. We had better espionage. We had more money. We had more nukes. We were ahead. Cold War II started right after because what America does well is win the war, lose the peace, right? So we lost the peace, and now we have Cold War II. It's reversed. China is now senior partner. Russia is now junior partner. The MAD, mutual assured destruction, is cyber when it was nuclear, and now we're fighting in the markets and not in espionage. So I think we're in Cold War II, and you're right, we're losing.
The cutting
off of the bank accounts makes it feel a little more lukewarm. Because in the Cold War, citizens weren't getting screwed over by stuff, really. They were ducking and covering, and the 9-year-olds thinking they were going to protect them from a nuke, living in terror. But the shutting off the bank accounts makes it feel kind of hot. It's not hot. Like a hot war would be when bombs are dropping and houses are getting blown up.
Maybe. But I think maybe in the future, we bring it up often enough, 4th and 5th generational warfare, hot means something else.
I'm afraid of the AI, really. If we're talking about a hot World War III, it would be like people are stuck in the metaverse and then the AI starts dropping bombs.
Ultron, dude.
Yes, but you got to remember that the idea of capturing land is nowhere near as valuable as capturing IP, right? Yep. IP is the value now, right? land is less valuable than it ever was compared to World War II days, right? Now, look, what if the Chinese invaded and captured California? Do they care? Only if the IP is gone. If the IP is still there, they win. If the IP shifts to Austin or something, what'd they get? They got a bunch of expensive land they have to quell.
That actually sucks.
Yes, that's all they got.
Northern California is pretty good. Southern California is basically drought-ridden.
Yes. So if they don't get the IP of Disney and of Silicon Valley, if they don't get the IP, what's the value? So they're trying to capture IP, which China's doing very well.
Very,
Yeah, I was
very
gonna
well.
say.
Yeah,
Yes.
Disney, absolutely on board. I loved
Yes.
it when Disney Plus thanked the Xinjiang security forces for helping them with their movie. And it's like the same security contractors that have, the Uyghurs in concentration camps. But talk about IP capture. There you go. It's a lot. See, this is the future of war. It's the control of resources, manipulation, propaganda. It's getting LeBron James to come out and defend China.
Right.
It's getting Mark Cuban. And who was the other guy? Was it Steve Kerr? Was that his name?
That's
Yeah,
the
Kerr, and also John
Golden
Cena
State
did a video,
Warrior.
right?
John Cena
John Cena, for
apologizing
sure.
to
Right.
China.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Kerr's the Golden State Warrior coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he came out and he was like, "Look, we got a lot of problems in America too." It's like, oh, dude, come on, man. Sure, but I think what's happening. I don't even want to repeat the things that are happening in Xinjiang. I mean, that's just nightmarish. What's going on with those people? But then you got what was her face? That woman on, was it Savannah Guthrie? Was that who did it? The Olympic opening ceremony had a Uyghur Muslim. So she was like, "See, look at that," repudiation. Oh, wow.
There's a Uyghur. See? Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Direct CCP propaganda.
What
Brought
if
to you
my
by
best
NBC.
friend is black? How could I be racist?
Exactly. I can't. Yes, exactly.
I'm thinking about World War II and how I would live my whole life like, oh, of course I would support the invasion of Nazi Germany and the destruction of Nazi Germany or whatever. But like now today, it's kind of like we're looking at it again. Do you support an invasion? Do you support war? Do you support putting your life on the line and risking everything that we
In
have?
World War II, most Americans didn't. Remember, we never declared war on Germany. Germany declared war on us.
Yeah.
We didn't care about any of that stuff. If it wasn't we declared war on Japan.
Because Japan attacked us first.
Correct. We didn't. Remember the speech, "The Day That Will Live in Infamy"?
Yeah.
His words were, "I want a declaration of war against the Empire of Japan." Hitler declared war on us. We didn't declare war on him.
Technically, we were funding the British and the French as best we could. The French.
Through Lend-Lease, we were absolutely funding them. But declaration of war, America wasn't concerned about that. Remember, all wars begin for terrible reasons, but they always end for ethical reasons. Right? So they began because someone bombed us, or let's go get the Germans. But it ends because freedom. That's not how it started. Right? So wars always end because of something amazing, but they begin because of garbage.
I think
World War I didn't begin to end the empires.
Yeah.
But now it was the war to end the empires.
Yeah.
No, it was because people were being stupid in Europe. That's why it started.
Three cousins couldn't get along with each other.
Three cousins
How
couldn't like
insane
each other.
is that?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, at what point,
Yes.
if you have a defensive pact with a country, do you renege on the defensive pact
Or don't
Say,
have one.
I'm not going in. Yeah, you got invaded. Like Ukraine,
Or don't
you-
have one.
like
you
NATO.
cannot have one.
NATO's a defensive pact. It's,
And we should not be in it.
I'm interested in that path.
Yes. we
Wasn't
should not be in it.
that Trump's position as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Trump was better. Trump wanted them to pay more.
Right.
I think he didn't go far enough.
Oh wow.
I would have removed ourselves out of NATO completely. Why are we in? NATO was a pact to stop the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union fell, we should have removed ourselves from NATO. All NATO has done is started problems for us.
I mean, one thing I was saying earlier is why should any American care about what's happening on the eastern borders of Ukraine when our southern border is not a priority for this president or this administration? The idea that they would be sending U.S. troops to Eastern Europe for some threat of Russia, but not be willing to secure our own border is laughable.
Well, there's two parts I want to bring up here. I do care, and we should care. It doesn't mean we should send young Marine soldiers and sailors to die, right? And it's not black and white in my view. I think we can use the bully pulpit. We can talk about it. We can try to make it better. We can get the American people to care. We can do that and assist. But I don't want to say, look, I was a Marine. And when I was a Marine, would I have left my legs in the streets of Manhattan? I'm a New Yorker. Would I have done that? Of course I would. I do it today, right? If I thought the Chinese were coming across the border or something, I'd leave my legs in the streets of Manhattan today. And I'm an old man now, and I would still do it. But do I want to send my kids, who my kids are now 17 years old, do I want to send my children to go fight and die in Ukraine? No, I don't. But
For
do I
what?
care? Of course I care.
Yeah.
I don't want them to have trouble. I don't want them to be bombed. I'm a human being. I have compassion. I don't want them to die. But it doesn't mean I want to send my children to die. What I might want to do is try to help them defend themselves. Maybe. I'm okay with that. right? Or talk about it or whatever the case may be. But people have the right to fight their own wars and to create their own governments. We had a civil war. We had a revolutionary war. That's how we started our country. We won't let others do it. We were under the yoke of the British Empire for, 100 years? And then we decided that the best way for us to become independent was war. The Canadians thought, nah, we'll do it peace. Both are the right answer. Each nation decides on its own. Then we had to have a civil war. The Canadians didn't have to have one. That's fine. Both are the right answer.
Apparently, we were hanging out with Stephen Marsh. He wrote a book on Civil War.
Yep.
And he was mentioning
I read his book.
Canada actually had some very serious periods of instability in
Yep.
was it 82 and 95?
Yep.
So, it's not all perfect.
No nation is.
Yeah.
No nation is. If you've got to put people together, they're going to want to fight each other. It's how it works. Now, hopefully we can do it peacefully through politics and through talking. That's the best way of doing it. And that's what Canada decided. And that's good. We didn't.
I got a feeling in Ukraine that the Russian is going to send peacekeepers in, and then the Americans are going to be funding the rebels for the next 20 years again and arming them. And then the rebels are going to become the villains when we're done with it.
I just want to say, man, Ukraine is amazing. Beautiful country. I got to hang out in Kiev for several months. Amazing food, poverty wages, good people, beautiful cities, and absolutely horrible, what we're seeing here, man. It was kind of crazy to see that this country, what was it? Luke was saying it was like the Afghanistan of Europe. I went for a walk when I was in Kiev with some coworkers and a friend. We were going to get food. And you can see buildings that still have bullet holes from from World War II, I think it was, or whatever. Wow. That when there was like artillery firing that they just never repaired. Some of these, like inside it's fine, but outside you can see the scars of war. And it's kind of sad because these people are, the people I met and hung out with are just good, hardworking people who want to just do their thing.
But I think sometimes they want to keep it there on purpose, right? They don't want you to forget, right? There are aspects of, if you go to Germany, parts of where the Berlin Wall used to be. Yeah. They keep that stuff there so you don't forget, right? They don't want you to forget what happened. So a lot of times people will purposely say, well, I could fix that wall, but no, you should look and go, oh, right, war is bad. Let's not do that.
I love it then when they start tearing down the statues in the U.S.
Yes.
And they're saying like, there's a meme where it's like, well, what about moving the statues of the Nazis in Germany to museums? Oh wait, there aren't any because they destroyed all that stuff. It's like, but as you mentioned, there's parts of the Berlin Wall. There are still remnants, and look, I understand if you've got a statue venerating the Confederacy or some of these people like the Klan or something. Okay, I get we don't want those statues up in the middle of a park or something, but you put them in a museum if you're going to remove them, and you do it by vote. You do it by community organization. You say, how many of us agree on this? The problem is you get these lunatics who come in with ropes and just rip them down against, that's anti-democratic. It's fascistic. It's authoritarian. As much as I'm not a fan of the statues either, I think it's important if we don't put up a plaque or have some remembrance of what that was and why it was there, you're doomed to repeat your history.
I like the idea of just auctioning them all off. Just auction them off. Raise money for the state, right? Which you need money anyway, right? Auction them all off. And then if you're some rich guy who cares about the heritage, which is often and common in most states in this world, right? The rich guys will spend the time, they will buy it, and they'll move and they'll put it into and they'll donate to the museum. But if you're some guy who really hates some Confederate general and you want to tear a statue down, great, get the people together, buy the statue, and have a ceremony in your front lawn and destroy the damn thing.
Look at this libertarian guy with a free market solution.
You got it every time. Guilty as charged.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.